Priyanka Chopra is more than just a global icon. She is a lesson in self-respect, boundaries, and unshakable confidence. In a world where many people try to please everyone, she reminds us of a powerful truth. If you give yourself away too easily, people stop valuing you. Respect doesn't come from being available at everyone's call. It comes from knowing your worth, setting limits, and carrying yourself with dignity. Today, we're going to uncover how Priyanka Chopra's journey teaches us the importance of not being too friendly. Because when you make yourself too common, you become invisible. And when you hold your ground, the world takes notice. When we look at the life and career of Priyanka Chopra, one of the most striking lessons she leaves us with is the undeniable truth that value diminishes when availability is too easy. Think about it. Anything that comes without effort, without cost, or without struggle rarely carries the weight of importance in our lives. Human nature is wired in such a way that we crave what feels scarce, we cherish what feels earned, and we admire what requires us to rise to a higher level in order to deserve it. Priyanka's story, both on screen and off, is a reflection of this principle. She didn't become one of the most recognized global figures by being too easy, too available, or too eager to please. She became who she is because she understood that her time, her presence, and her energy needed to be guarded and given with intention. Imagine for a moment the difference between a glass of water and a diamond. Both serve a purpose, both are valuable in their own way, but the value we assign to them is shaped by availability. Water is abundant, and though it is vital for survival, most people take it for granted because it is easily accessible. A diamond, however, is rare. It requires time, effort, and patience to uncover, and because of its scarcity, people are willing to pay any price to have it. The same principle applies to how people treat us. If you are always available, always saying yes, always giving without boundaries, then people begin to assume that your presence requires no effort to obtain. And when something requires no effort, it is rarely valued. Priyanka Chopra has always been conscious of this balance. From her early days in Bollywood to her breakthrough in Hollywood, she never placed herself in positions where she was desperate for validation. She built a brand around exclusivity, around knowing her worth, and around reminding people that she is not someone you can casually access. It wasn't arrogance, it was self-respect. She knew that if she allowed herself to be too friendly, too present, or too eager, her value as an actress, a speaker, and a global figure would decrease. And this lesson applies far beyond fame and the entertainment industry. In personal relationships, this truth is magnified even more. When you constantly make yourself available to others, when you drop everything to meet their needs, when you try to win their approval by giving without limit, you might think you're showing love and care, but what you're really doing is lowering the sense of value people attach to you. Human psychology is clear on this. People tend to respect those who have boundaries, those who are selective with their time, and those who make their presence feel like a privilege, not an entitlement. Priyanka's journey shows us that it's not about being cold or distant, but about knowing when to say no, knowing when to pull back, and knowing when to create space for others to miss your presence. That absence, that intentional scarcity, is what multiplies value. Think about how people react when a celebrity rarely does interviews, rarely attends events, or only occasionally shares something personal. The world hangs on to every word, every gesture, because rarity amplifies importance. On the other hand, if that same person is everywhere, saying yes to everything, flooding the space with their presence, they quickly become ordinary, even forgettable. This is the same dynamic in friendships, careers, and even romantic relationships. The moment you start giving without limit, people unconsciously begin to believe that your presence requires no effort. They stop cherishing your time, they stop seeing you as rare. And the sad truth is, when people stop seeing you as rare, they stop respecting you. Priyanka Chopra built her life on the opposite principle. By carefully guarding her energy and knowing her worth, she made herself a person people had to rise to in order to access, not someone who was simply waiting to be chosen. Boundaries create respect, and this truth becomes clearer when we look at the journey of people like Priyanka Chopra, who carved out their place in the world not just by talent, but by the way they carried themselves. Boundaries are not walls meant to push people away. They are gates that define where respect begins. When someone knows what you allow and what you don't, they treat you with a certain level of seriousness that is impossible to create by friendliness alone. Priyanka Chopra has shown time and again that she built her career and her reputation on drawing lines that others dared not cross. Whether it was in choosing the roles she played, the interviews she gave, or the way she handled criticism, she consistently showed the world that she would not allow anyone to define her on their terms. Respect flows naturally to people who show others how to treat them. If you always say yes, if you never protect your energy, if you give people access to every part of your life without limitation, they start to believe they own a piece of you. They stop treating your time as sacred, they stop valuing your presence, and instead of respecting you, they begin to use you. Priyanka knew from early on that in an industry where everyone wants something from you, your time, your attention, your presence, your survival depends on how well you draw your boundaries. Her career is proof that it is not enough to be talented. You must also be strong enough to say no when the situation calls for it. Boundaries are also a reflection of self-worth. People without boundaries are often the ones afraid of rejection, afraid of being disliked, or afraid of losing someone's approval.
They make themselves endlessly available and bend over backwards because they think that's the way to keep people close. But ironically, the opposite happens. When you give people unlimited access to you, they don't get closer. They drift away because there is no mystery, no challenge, and no respect. Priyanka Chopra understood that creating boundaries is not about arrogance but about value. By refusing to be too accessible, she allowed people to see her as someone whose time and attention mattered. Think about this in daily life. A boss who always agrees to every demand of employees is rarely respected. A parent who never sets rules for a child often loses control. A friend who is always available even when it hurts them often gets taken for granted. But the ones who say no, who set limits, who are clear about what they accept and what they don't, are the ones who command respect even in their absence. Priyanka's rise on the global stage wasn't simply because of her talent, but because she showed the world how to treat her. She made it clear that she was not someone to be overlooked or underestimated. Boundaries also create a sense of identity. When people know where you stand, when they know what you tolerate and what you won't, you become someone solid in their minds, and solidity attracts admiration. People respect consistency, they respect clarity, and they respect someone who knows their own value. Priyanka's refusal to be boxed into stereotypes, her bold decisions to step beyond Bollywood into Hollywood, and her fearless stance in interviews are all examples of how boundaries shape respect. She did not allow cultural limits, industry standards, or societal expectations to trap her. She created her own boundaries, and in return the world respected her more for it. Boundaries don't mean pushing people away. They mean showing them how to approach you. They mean deciding what you give and what you keep. They mean teaching others that your value is not up for negotiation. Priyanka Chopra's career proves that when you establish boundaries, you don't lose people, you gain respect, and that respect carries further than mere friendliness ever could. Confidence speaks louder than friendliness, and when you study the way Priyanka Chopra carries herself, you see that her success has been built less on trying to please everyone, and more on embodying a confidence that cannot be ignored. Friendliness can open doors, but confidence is what keeps them open. It is the inner belief that radiates outward, making people pause, listen, and respect you without you ever needing to beg for attention. Priyanka is admired worldwide not just for her beauty or talent, but for the way she enters a room with a presence that says she belongs there. That presence doesn't come from overextending herself to be liked. It comes from the quiet power of self-assurance. When you are too friendly, there is a risk of blending in. People may see you as nice, but niceness alone rarely makes someone unforgettable. Confidence, on the other hand, creates a lasting impression. It tells people that you know who you are, what you stand for, and what you will not compromise on. Priyanka Chopra has always embodied this. From winning Miss World at a young age to making the transition into Hollywood, she never relied on friendliness to push her forward. She relied on the clarity of her own worth and the conviction that she deserved to be seen. That conviction spoke louder than any smile or polite conversation could.
Confidence also has a magnetic quality. People are naturally drawn to those who believe in themselves because it awakens the desire to believe in them too. It is why leaders inspire followers and why certain personalities rise above the crowd. Priyanka's confidence in taking on roles that others might have doubted, her boldness in stepping onto international platforms, and her unapologetic way of speaking her truth all made her more respected than if she had simply tried to fit in quietly. Confidence does not chase, it attracts. It makes others want to align with you rather than the other way around. Another important truth is that confidence creates boundaries without needing words. When you are confident, you don't have to constantly explain or justify your decisions. People sense it in your tone, in your body language, and in your actions. Priyanka Chopra has been asked countless times about how she navigates different industries, how she faces criticism, and how she balances her identity across cultures. Her answers are always filled with calm certainty, never with an anxious need to please. That calmness is a form of unspoken power. Friendliness might win temporary approval, but confidence earns long-term respect. Think about the difference in personal relationships as well. A person who is overly friendly might be liked at first, but soon their eagerness becomes predictable, and their presence is taken for granted. A person who is confident, however, doesn't need to chase anyone's affection. They don't need to overcompensate to prove their worth. Their very presence commands appreciation because it is clear they value themselves. Priyanka's confidence is exactly what allowed her to walk into spaces that were not made for her and claim them as her own. Confidence also sets the tone for how others perceive your abilities. If you walk into a room trying to be liked, people may smile, but they may not take you seriously. If you walk in with confidence, people automatically assume you have something worth listening to, something worth considering. This is why Priyanka Chopra has been able to go from films to international speaking engagements to business ventures. It was never just friendliness, it was her undeniable belief in herself that made others believe too. Priyanka's life illustrates the idea that while friendliness may make you approachable, it is confidence that makes you unforgettable. Confidence speaks a universal language, one that is louder and clearer than any attempt to win people over by being endlessly nice. It is the force that makes the world pause, notice, and remember. Mystery attracts more than overexposure, and this is a lesson that Priyanka Chopra has lived by in her rise to global recognition. When someone keeps every detail of their life on display, when they constantly seek validation by showing everything they do, people begin to lose curiosity. The power of attraction lies not in what is already revealed, but in what remains hidden. Curiosity is the fuel of interest, and when you leave people guessing, when you create a sense of wonder, they lean in closer. Priyanka understood that to stay relevant and respected, she could not allow herself to be an open book that anyone could casually flip through. She built her brand on revealing enough to inspire admiration while keeping enough behind the curtain to inspire fascination. Overexposure often comes from insecurity. It comes from the desire to constantly remind people that you exist, to constantly prove your worth through visibility. But when you are always there, always accessible, always speaking, posting, sharing, you lose the very element that makes people value you, scarcity. The mystery is gone, and with it the sense of uniqueness. Priyanka Chopra avoided this trap by carefully controlling what she allowed the world to see. Whether it was in her interviews, her public appearances, or the way she shared her personal life, she never gave away everything. She maintained a sense of privacy, and that privacy became a part of her allure. Mystery does not mean silence, it means selectivity. It means choosing what moments to share and what to keep for yourself. In relationships, mystery makes people lean in. In careers, it makes people curious about your next move. In public life, it makes people anticipate rather than dismiss. Priyanka's career demonstrates that balance perfectly. She appeared when it mattered most, she spoke when she had something powerful to say, and she kept people waiting just long enough to crave her presence. That is the essence of mystery. It creates longing instead of fatigue. Think about the difference between a movie trailer and a movie that reveals every plot twist in the first 5 minutes. The trailer that gives you glimpses without showing everything makes you want to buy a ticket. The trailer that reveals the entire story makes you lose interest before the movie even begins. Life works the same way. Overexposure gives away the entire story, leaving nothing for people to discover. Mystery keeps people invested in the journey, eager for the next chapter. Priyanka knew this and lived it. She didn't need to overshare to stay in the spotlight. Her controlled presence made people want more. There is also an element of power in mystery. When you are mysterious, you control the narrative. You decide what people know and what they don't, and that control keeps the balance of power in your hands. Overexposure, on the other hand, gives people too much information, too much access, and too much control over your story. Priyanka's mystery allowed her to be both admired and respected, because people were always aware that there was more to her than what they were allowed to see. That unseen part created depth, and depth always creates attraction. In personal life, mystery plays an equally powerful role. When someone is too available, too predictable, or too transparent about everything, people often lose excitement. But when there is a layer of mystery, when there are parts of you that are slowly discovered rather than immediately displayed, interest stays alive. Priyanka Chopra carried this principle into her relationships and her career. By not giving everything away at once, she created space for people to be curious, to pursue, and to invest more deeply in her. Mystery is not about deception, it is about discipline. It is about knowing that not everyone deserves access to every part of you. It is about protecting the sacred pieces of your identity and sharing them only with those who earn that privilege. Priyanka understood that what is rare becomes valuable, and what is hidden becomes desirable. Her aura has always been rooted in the art of giving just enough while holding back enough to keep the world intrigued. Self-worth determines how others treat you, and this is one of the most powerful lessons reflected in Priyanka Chopra's journey from a small-town girl in India to a global icon. The way you see yourself sets the tone for how the world sees you. If you walk into a room uncertain of your own value, people pick up on that energy instantly. They mirror back the doubts you carry inside. But if you enter with a strong sense of who you are and what you deserve, others are compelled to treat you accordingly. Priyanka built her career on this foundation. She didn't wait for the world to validate her. She decided her own worth first, and that decision shaped the way others responded to her. Many people struggle in life because they undervalue themselves. They believe they are not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, and as a result they settle for less than they deserve. This plays out in jobs where they accept lower positions, in relationships where they tolerate disrespect, and in friendships where they give more than they receive. The problem is not the world, the problem is the lack of self-worth within. Priyanka Chopra faced rejection, criticism, and challenges, but instead of letting those define her, she chose to define herself. She believed she had something unique to offer, and that belief created a standard. Others could either rise to meet it or be left behind. Self-worth is not arrogance, it is alignment with your own value. Arrogance shouts to cover insecurity, but true self-worth speaks quietly yet powerfully. Priyanka never needed to prove herself through desperation. She did not chase roles, beg for opportunities, or mold herself into something others demanded. She chose to stand tall in her own identity, and that stance forced others to see her as she saw herself. When you treat yourself as valuable, you send an unspoken message to the world: this is how I expect to be treated. And more often than not, people comply. In relationships, self-worth is the invisible boundary that decides how much love, respect, and effort you receive. When you have low self-worth, you accept crumbs, believing it's all you deserve. When you have high self-worth,
You refuse to settle for anything less than genuine effort, consistency, and respect. Priyanka's personal life also reflects this truth. Despite being in the public eye, she never settled for surface-level treatment. She chose a partner who valued her, who matched her energy, and who treated her as the equal she believed herself to be. That choice came not from luck, but from a foundation of self-worth. In career, self-worth defines the opportunities you pursue. If you believe you are only capable of small things, you never attempt the big ones. If you believe you deserve a seat at the global table, you fight for it without apology. Priyanka Chopra moved beyond the boundaries of Bollywood and stepped onto the international stage because she believed her talent and voice were worthy of global recognition. That belief opened doors that friendliness alone could never have opened. Another critical element of self-worth is how it influences resilience. People with low self-worth often crumble under criticism because they rely on external validation to feel secure. People with high self-worth, however, remain grounded even when the world doubts them. Priyanka faced skepticism when she entered Hollywood. Many questioned whether she could succeed, whether she belonged, but her self-worth anchored her. She did not need the world to reassure her, she reassured herself. That unshakable inner foundation eventually forced others to acknowledge what she already knew, that she was worthy of success on a global scale. Self-worth is also contagious. When you carry yourself with dignity, others feel inspired to treat you with dignity as well. Your energy becomes the standard for how people engage with you. Priyanka Chopra became a role model not just because of her achievements but because of the way she carried herself with poise, even under pressure. She showed young women everywhere that your sense of worth is not dictated by your background, your circumstances, or the opinions of others. It is dictated by what you decide for yourself. Do you want me to continue and expand Keynote No. 6 into the same powerful cinematic style? You said Keynote No. 6 expanded into 600 words. Don't add ending sentences. Don't add any hating. ChatGPT said, respect is earned by saying no, and nowhere is this lesson more visible than in the way Priyanka Chopra has navigated her life and career. The power of no is often underestimated, but it is the very thing that separates people who are respected from those who are merely liked. Saying yes may win temporary approval, but it rarely builds lasting respect. Every time you say no to something that does not align with your values, your goals, or your self-respect, you teach people that you are not someone who can be taken lightly. Priyanka's journey is filled with examples where her no defined her far more than her yes ever could. In the entertainment industry, opportunities are endless, but not all of them are worthy. Many aspiring actors and artists say yes to everything out of fear that they will miss their big break. But in doing so, they dilute their brand, compromise their integrity, and lose control of their identity. Priyanka Chopra chose differently. She was selective with her roles, careful with her appearances, and intentional about the projects she associated with her name. Every no she gave built her reputation as someone who could not be molded or manipulated by the system. That selectivity became her strength. Saying no also protects your energy. When you give in to every demand, every request, and every expectation, you eventually run yourself dry. People stop seeing your sacrifices as special because they assume you will always be there. But when you say no, you remind them that your time is valuable, your energy is limited, and your presence is not guaranteed. Priyanka's ability to maintain boundaries in an industry that constantly demands more is a clear reflection of this principle. She guarded her energy, and in doing so, she preserved the respect people had for her. In personal relationships, the ability to say no is equally powerful. Too many people fear that saying no will make them lose love, friendship, or approval. But the truth is, when you never say no, you end up losing yourself instead. People begin to take advantage of your kindness, mistaking it for weakness. Priyanka never allowed her personal life to be dictated by public opinion. She said no to the pressures of conformity, no to the expectations that she should fit into a particular box, and no to relationships or dynamics that did not serve her growth. Each of those decisions earned her more respect, both from herself and from others. The psychology behind this is simple. Humans value what is scarce and respect what is firm. A person who cannot say no appears pliable, easy to control, and lacking in conviction. A person who can say no, even at the risk of disappointing others, appears strong, self-assured, and worthy of admiration. Priyanka Chopra's life is a clear demonstration of this. By saying no to limitations, no to disrespect, and no to mediocrity, she positioned herself as someone who demanded to be taken seriously. Saying no also creates space for the right yes. Every time you decline something that doesn't serve you, you make room for opportunities that align with your vision. Priyanka Chopra's transition to Hollywood could never have happened if she had filled her time with roles that kept her small in Bollywood. She had to say no to stay open for something greater. That act of courage made people respect her even more, because it showed that she was not desperate for attention. She was intentional about growth. Respect built on yes is fragile, because it depends on pleasing others. Respect built on no is unshakable, because it comes from integrity. Priyanka's power lies in her ability to walk away, to refuse, to stand firm. It is in those moments of refusal that her respect was solidified, proving that no is not just a rejection but a declaration of self-worth. In the end, Priyanka Chopra's story reminds us of something deeper than fame or success. It is a reminder of how we must carry ourselves in a world that constantly tests our worth. She teaches us that value diminishes when we make ourselves too available, that boundaries are not barriers but bridges to respect, and that confidence has a voice far louder than empty friendliness. She shows us that mystery is more powerful than overexposure, that self-worth silently dictates how the world treats us, and that respect is earned every time we have the courage to say no. Her journey is living proof that the way people treat us is a mirror of how we treat ourselves. If we want to be respected, we must respect our own time, our own energy, and our own identity. If we want to be valued, we must first see ourselves as valuable. And if we want to be remembered, we must carry ourselves with the kind of confidence, discipline, and dignity that demands attention without ever begging for it.